I did not have high hopes for this one single nightstand or end table that was covered in a goopy brown paint. But here we are, we're going to give it a go. I'm actually going to try a product I haven't used before, which is citrus strip. I've seen lots of people stripping furniture, and it's so satisfying to watch, and I'm sure it cuts down on sanding. So I'm going to give it a try. A great tip was to put saran wrap over the top to keep it from drying out. And I'm going to test different varying times of leaving the product on. So the first one here is for 30 minutes. Now, the bottle actually says to check it every 30 minutes. So this one makes sense to me. It's taking off the finish pretty well, but I could still scrape a little bit more off, and I think I need a little bit longer. So after an hour and a half, it was coming off super cleanly, and the product was still kind of a little bit gooey. So I'd say gooey is kind of what you're gooing for. See what I did there? Well, anyway, very satisfying to do this part, and I did leave it on for a little bit longer just to see what 3 hours would do. And at 3 hours, although I was doing this outside on a warm day in the sunshine, 3 hours was too long, because even though the product is taking the finish off pretty cleanly, it's starting to get a little dry. And so it was kind of starting to get a little crusty. And I think the perfect time for this finish was about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm sure it varies depending on how many different layers that you have. This one was not a ton of layers, surprisingly. It seemed like it was just the factory manufacturer's finish and then a brown paint on top of that. So I did go ahead and strip the rest of the top, because I'm not going to try the 6 to 12 to 18 hours that some people on the internet suggested, because it will just be completely dried up and I will have to start all over again. So the secret to citrus strip, I think, is leaving it on long enough that it actually does eat away the finish, but not long enough that it starts to dry out. So there's some kind of a sweet spot timing that you've got to get. And I'm sure if you put on more product, obviously it's going to take longer for it to dry out. So one thing about this citrus strip was that lots of people were saying, and even the bottle says, that it's a pleasant smell and it's not the super strong chemical smell. And I'll say it's like your bathroom cleaner. You know, it kind of smells like citrus, kind of smells like it's toxic too. I'd say that's about where this one is. So it is a very strong smell. It's very citrusy, but also very chemically. And if you're doing it in a well-ventilated room or outdoors, obviously it's going to be fine. But I was still smelling it the next day, kind of in the area. So it's kind of stays around, and just to keep that in mind. But I think it is a lot safer for your health than some of the other chemicals. I did wear goggles and gloves. Oh, goggles. I don't wear goggles. I wear glasses. I did wear glasses and gloves, but I didn't feel the need to wear any kind of a respirator to protect from fumes or anything. It wasn't that bad, and I usually am pretty sensitive, so I'll get a headache. I'm like the sensor to tell you if this is too strong of a smell. Lisa probably has a headache, so I'm the indicator, I guess. After you get done with the citrus strip, you will want to wipe down the leftover kind of goo. Wipe it off with mineral spirits. And one thing about having the citrus strip is that the gooey, I don't know, you got to make sure you scrape all the goo, because I had a few places where it fell into the drawer and it kind of just stuck where it landed, and it looks gross. So make sure you keep your area clean. of the goo. Now, isn't this tricky? I thought this was a solid wood piece because they put that little piece of veneer on the back of this piece, and I was fooled. So after I glued down that veneer, it's now time to sand this bad boy down to the bare wood on top and on the drawers. Now, originally my plan was to do a light stain, maybe even a tan wash, but unfortunately these drawer fronts were just like different colors. They didn't match the top, they didn't match each other. So that was a no-go. And the top finish had one small stain that looked like it was a water stain. Someone had put a cup on it or something at some point, so I wasn't able to get that one clean or sand it down enough. So unfortunately, my light color staining idea was not going to work. But you know what? As with these projects usually, you need to pivot to another idea at some point. And sometimes that process is, I don't know, it just makes it, you pour more into it when you realize I need to sometimes make a different decision. I can't always do exactly what I envisioned, so we hold on to it loosely. So as with life, you should hold on to your plans kind of loosely. Sometimes things don't work out the way you expected, and it's a good discipline actually to get into. So here I'm just scuff sanding the base of this piece, which was really tricky with all those details. I like to use a sanding pad underneath of my sandpaper that is like a foam squishy sanding disc, and it's proven really helpful when you have like concave surfaces to not just flatten out the surface if it's a rounded area. So that has been really helpful. Also just being really strategic and coming back with a hand sander sometimes. Here's that stain I was talking about. Yeah, it's not going to work out. Piece in the center of the drawers is definitely fake wood, and the sides were not going to be stainable at all. So I, again, just have to kind of change my plan a little bit. But you know what? It's a beautiful day. We're going to have a good attitude and get this piece finished. So what I did decide to do was to use my drill and this brush set, and I was just going to clean the furniture with this instead of scrubbing for, I don't know, half an hour to an hour. This was my plan. And it's a really soft bristle brush, so don't worry, it's not actually scratching or scraping up anything. It's just cleaning out all those little crevices. So what a great invention. Whoever thought of this was really, really smart. Also, I might need to use this on my bathtub later. Great idea. So now it's time. It's finally time to stain the top. And I chose this color that is kind of a medium shade. And I don't know if you are noticing or not, but there's kind of that line where, oops, remember I did the citrus strip and it left kind of a permanent mark where I scraped it, and I sanded and sanded and sanded. So the line's right there, and you know what, it is what it is. So again, change of plans. I am gonna have to stain the drawers to match, and then I'm going to have to come back later after it's dried and do a darker stain, which I wasn't super thrilled with this color anyway. So honestly, it's fine to me. So here's the darker stain that I'm using, and it has a polyurethane finish built in. So I really, really like using this. However, it's sticky and it's really, you have to move fast, especially if you're working outside. So I am moving very quickly and trying to keep the finish even here. Oh, look, my help showed up. They are good helpers, but they don't help me paint yet. They really want to. They are observing so they can learn. So here we're ready. We're so ready. to do the painting on the base. You can see the top looks pretty good at this point. And my pro tip is, instead of taping, I want to use fine details with a tiny craft brush. I hate taping. It always seeps. I've never had one good experience with taping, so this is my plan. It takes a little longer, but maybe it doesn't, because taping takes a while too. I don't know. You tell me what you think. Do you tape? Do you not tape? Do you try and tape and it never works out? How does that go for you? So after painting the base and doing some repair work, I'm ready to put in those drawer pulls that they were original. I just painted them after I cleaned them and sanded them a little bit, and they look great. So the last step, I wanted to add the final touch with some drawer liner paper, and it's beautiful. I love this color, and here's how it turned out. And just to remind you what she looked like before, and here is after. I am so glad that you were here for this journey and that I could tell the story of this piece. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, that would be awesome. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think.